Hey y'all, WackyWormer here with episode 16 of my single player HermitPack playthrough. The last couple episodes we've been focusing on sort of the supporting things for ore quintupling. This episode we're actually going to get it implemented. I've actually already got it implemented. I'm just going to go over what every thing does and how I did it and all that, because it was sort of a pain to get set up, and I'll go over why all in a second. But remember, we started with cobble generation, which we processed into gravel, into flint, into gunpowder. Gunpowder was necessary for last episode, where we started processing everything into sulfuric acid. Just to go over that process again, we're pulling in gunpowder into this chemical injection chamber, along with hydrogen chloride. Remember, hydrogen chloride came from our ore quadrupling process. We're just kind of piggybacking off that. If you need to know how to produce it, you can look at my quadrupling video and figure all that out. Now, this thing is going to output sulfur into a chemical oxidizer, which is going to give us sulfur dioxide, a gas, which is funneled then into a chemical infuser. This is going to take oxygen, which we're just kind of piggybacking on our oxygen production for our ore tripling process. And we're taking the oxygen, sulfur dioxide, and we're making sulfur trioxide. This is also a gas getting funneled out into the chemical infuser here, which is taking water vapor and sulfur trioxide and producing sulfuric acid. That water vapor is coming from this machine back here, the rotary condensator. This is taking in water and producing water vapor. The purpose of this machine is to convert a liquid into a gas or a gas back into a liquid. You toggle that operation with this button here, and we had to toggle it to get everything up and running first. It's normally in the opposite direction. So don't forget that. If that's hanging you up, that's probably why. Coming back into this system, which is kicking off our ore quintupling process, we're producing sulfuric acid here. Now, this sulfuric acid, contrary to what you might think, is actually a gas form. And that kind of makes sense. I mean, we're taking in a gas here and a gas here. We're doing a chemical reaction on it, which, I mean, does mean we can produce any phase we need, or any phase as a result of that process. But presumably we're getting a gas out of here. So that means we need pressurized tubes to pull out of this machine and to go into the chemical dissolution chamber. Now, these next few machines we're going to go over already have predefined input and output ports. They have sides that specific things have to go into. That is a very big difference compared to how all this was set up over here, where we had full control over it. Over here, we have almost zero control over what things go where. So we're piping in sulfuric acid, and it's kind of hard to see, but you can actually see the orange outline around it. So that is the larger orange square. That's the side we're piping that sulfuric acid into, the larger square. Our output from this is coming out of the smaller square. But this machine is taking in the sulfuric acid, is taking an iron ore, which we're putting into this machine from the top through an export bus. Remember, we're exporting from our ME system into this machine. So we're using the export bus. That's coming out there, going into the top. I think it has to be in the top. And we're going to combine those two, and we're going to get an iron slurry. This iron slurry, contrary to what you might think, is also in a gaseous form. So we're going to take that iron slurry and we're going to funnel it down using pressurized pipes. We're going to go into a small input port on the chemical washer. Now, note the chemical washer, again, does not have a tab to give us control over the inputs and outputs. So we've got into the small port, we're funneling in our pressurized gas. On top is a larger port. We're pulling in water all the way from our reservoir over there. So that's kind of running around over the top, going all kinds of craziness. Coming over into here, that's going to combine to give us a clean iron slurry. This clean iron slurry is probably also a gas. I don't know, because I'm actually funneling it directly into the chemical crystallizer. So if you want to put some distance in between those, just kind of experiment and see whether it's the mechanical pipes or the pressurized pipes that actually move that liquid or gas over. All that being said, we've got the iron slurry coming in here. This is processing into crystals. Note that we actually can configure this in terms of where our outputs and inputs are and all that kind of stuff. I have this outputting out this backside right here directly across from me now, into an ME import bus because we're importing from outside the system into the system. So we're inputting all these crystals right here that we're producing into our ME system. And then slowly we're configuring this. We're replacing all the ores here with iron crystals and silver crystals, lead crystals, so on and so forth, so that everything goes in over there, gets funneled around through the system over here, and then goes in and is processed. So you can see we're kind of slowly pushing things along. One of the key things to note about this ore quintupling process, all of these machines over here on this side do not have factory versions. That means that we cannot do the parallel processing and all that we're doing here. We're processing one at a time through each of these machines. That's definitely going to slow our system down. Now, it really does depend on your setup, what you want to get out of it. If you're shooting for efficiency, if you want to make the most out of every ore block you mine, you know, do the quintupling. If you know, you're like me and you have the infinite ore generation thing going on right here, and you really don't care how much you get out of each ore, you can stay with the ore quadrupling or tripling or even less. You know, I like pushing everything to the limit, and even though we have infinite ores over there, which, you know, feels pretty cheaty at this point because I'm not doing anything to get the resources I actually need, the basic resources I actually need. You know, I want to push it to the limit, and I want to see the full system running. So I went ahead and did ore quintupling. Remember that we do have these speed upgrades in Mekanism that can speed up the process, and I'll definitely be making use of those for all these individual machines. Right now I'm just kind of letting it run for a while so I can you know, come back in 15-20 minutes or so and see what's being held up, what's the choke point in the system. That's going to be the starting point for where I put upgrades and stuff in right now. So you can see, like right here, this is definitely not a choke point. We're producing sulfur trioxide so much that we're backed up. We're producing sulfur dioxide enough that we're a little bit backed up. So even though, you know, this tank's empty, this input only has 1 or 2 sulfur in it at a time, and this is empty, overall we're actually backed up on this side of things, which means we could be using this sulfuric acid faster than we currently are. So we can come over here and look, okay, we're backed up here, come down here, we're backed up here, over here, this is the choke point. If we're producing this faster, then we're pulling everything out uphill from this faster. So I'm going to go ahead and throw, we'll start with just 2 upgrades, and we'll see where that takes us. And we'll just kind of let that run for a while and see what happens, and hopefully everything turns out pretty well. I could probably go through and do some cleanup in here. I'm not sure. I'll have to see, you know, if I can kind of move things around a little bit. But, you know, just my major piece of advice with this, go slow, do a lot of thinking about where you want to place things. Keep in mind that everything's going to need power, and everything's going to need at least one, if not more inputs, whether they're from gas or liquid or items. And so you're going to need multiple sides of each machine exposed for using for processing or for using those machines. That played a huge factor in why none of that stuff is lined up out here with the rest of the processing procedure out here, because I needed too many machine faces. And if I had stacked another set of machines on top of here, then these middle machines here would only have the back side on them where I could put power in, and then I would be relying on these to funnel everything around. So of course they could not be machines that required something from the outside, like this hydrogen chloride or the oxygen there. So just keep that in mind. There's nothing wrong with spreading things out a lot more than I've done now. I kind of like to keep things compact, even though it makes it a nightmare to work on. But, you know, usually once it's up and running, you don't have to mess with it. So that's the ore quintupling setup, and like I said, I'm just going to kind of sit on it for a while, see how everything runs. I'm probably going to do some reorganizing with this stuff right here, and just because I don't like having the wooden crates right here in front of me. That's kind of annoying a little bit. I would love to replace these with these quantum storage units. These guys can store like 32 billion of an item. It's, if you're a programmer or you're familiar with it at all, it's the limit, the highest number an integer can store. So it's awesome. It's great for storage. It would be a much better option than these right here. However, there is one major caveat that's hopefully going to get fixed soon, but that's that any applied energistics interfacing with this machine, it's not going to read the actual amount inside the machine. It's only going to read what's in this slot. So if I were to replace that, you know, with each of these storage buses are only ever going to read at most 64 of each item. It's going to ignore completely the rest that's actually in this system here. So I'm kind of waiting for that to get bug fixed. That's going to clean up this system a lot better, and it's going to be a lot nicer. I'm also going to do a bunch of redecorating. I like these laboratory blocks here, or the plastic blocks here from Mekanism. They're looking pretty nice. So I'm probably going to do a lot of replacement there. I may try to clean this up a little more. I'm not sure. I'm really happy though that most of this at this point is hands off. The only thing that's manual is actually taking ores out of this chest, which you can see I definitely need to get on and do. Haven't done it for a while. And funneling all that into the system. That's probably next on my list, and that'll probably be off camera because that's, you know, you've seen applied energistics or whatever other mods you might be using for moving items around. That's, you know, you're just pulling out of a chest, so that's not very difficult. What I am worried about is just running out of room for all of this, or for all of the ores and lapis lazuli and redstone and all that good stuff that I'm building up. In fact, let's take a look at, I've already got 2, 4, I've got 4 out of my 6 guys maxed out already. And these are, that one's pretty empty, but that one's getting pretty close. So I will have storage nightmares if I went ahead and funneled that over into the system. So it's still going to be manual for now. Maybe we can grab an update out of this, and all of my metals and ores and stuff can go into a bank of those. But we'll figure it out. So I think that's going to wrap up the episode. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more content, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, suggestions, if you need clarification or you need me to go over some of these points or anything a little bit more, I mean, if you have a topic for a video in the future, I would love to hear from you guys and get that put out there. You know, it'll be a good time. I think that's going to wrap up the episode, and I will see you hopefully in the next episode.